Don't.
Did I use?
Can't.
Order, please. This regular meeting of the Joshua Basin Water District Board of Directors for July 19, 2023 is now in session at 17:30 hours, 5:30. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Consideration of teleconferencing notifications or requests. None, there are none. Termination of a quorum. General Manager Johnson, a roll call, please.
Owen,
Present.
Vice President Doolittle.
Here.
Director Fick,
Here.
Director Jarlsberg,
Here.
Director Short.
Here. Thank you very much. We have a quorum. Approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda for this meeting?
So approved, so moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. We will get a minute. Public comment. We have a lot of people on the TV set, so we'll read this today. This time is set aside for public comment on any district-related matter, whether appearing on the agenda or not. The provisions of the Brown Act, the board is prohibited from taking action on items not listed on the agenda. At the discretion of the board president, however, comments on a particular agendized item may be deferred until that item is heard. Is there a comment from the public? Hearing none, seeing none. Public comment time is now closed. Consent calendar, there are no items on the consent calendar. So number 7, there is nothing that has been pulled, obviously. Item 8 is the action calendar. Climate change and Joshua Tree presentation. Vice President Doolittle, please. And this presentation is for information only. No action will be taken.
Give me 1 second and I'll get it started for you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, so hello, everyone, and thank you to General Manager Johnson and you all for allowing me this opportunity to get up here and talk a little bit about climate change and Joshua Tree. There's something to go over. Okay, so let's see, I've got to figure out how this is going to work. Oh, there we go. That's my water. So
Here we
why
are.
am I up here talking to you about climate change? Well, believe it or not, I've had my head stuck in the proverbial desert sand about climate change. Like I avoided reading articles about it. I didn't watch anything. And because I felt overwhelmed about it, I felt like there was nothing I could do. And it was just, dreadful projections for the future. But however, I was able to take a climate change steward class at UC Riverside in Palm Desert. Morongo Basin Conservation Association sponsored me, and I took that in fall of 2022. And after that class, I became a lot more confident in actions that I could take or that we could take and understanding some of those things. So I just want to share a little bit with you of, what I learned. Now, I'm no expert. Don't ask me any hard questions. We're learning on this together. And also, speaking of questions or comments, could you please hold those until the end? And you guys might like to know that this actually is an AI generated picture.
Oh.
All right, so here's the heat map of the US showing the places that are warming the fastest due to global warming. And as you can see down there in Southern California, where we're located, it's one of the fastest places as far as global warming. So we've had some temperature changes in California from 1950 to 2000. You can see right there, 2.6% Fahrenheit in our area. We've gone up since 1950. And these average summer temperatures in California have risen by approximately 3 degrees since 1896, with more than half of that increase occurring since the early 1970s. Where is this temperature increase coming from? What is causing it? Anybody want to answer? Wait, let's see, I got an answer. So it's from global warming. So changes in global and local temperatures occur due to the accumulation of carbon dioxide and other heat trapping gases into the atmosphere. And how long has this been going on? I just kind of mentioned it, but on this chart, I hope you can see, it starts with 400,000 years ago and it comes all the way up. So this dip right here on the far right, the low part, that was like the 1890s when the Industrial Revolution began. And then you can see it started going up, and then 1950, boy, it really went up. So to where the current level is right now. And in 2021, so this is atmospheric CO2 we're talking about. In 2021, CO2 accounted for 79% of all US greenhouse gas emissions from human activities. And this has mainly been from transportation and industry. And so for hundreds of thousands of years, this was regular CO2. And we've seen, like I said, the average annual temperatures increasing. And I thought you might like to know that we actually know about the atmosphere CO2 levels in the far past. Anybody know how we do this? I just found out. It's by analyzing air bubbles in glaciers. So that's how they can tell about what the atmosphere was, in the past. So, it's the evidence is clear that by burning fossil fuels, we have changed the atmosphere. And these gas concentrations, these greenhouse gas concentrations, have reached a level that guarantees substantial and unavoidable impacts for the foreseeable future. And we believe that we must take action at every level of government and industry to combat this threat. Now I want to show you just a short animated clip, very short, just showing you greenhouse gases effect and how kind of what's happening here. I hope the audio works. No, it's not going to.
I think I can fix that.
I'll sign
You
in a
want
second.
1 second?
Okay, wait, we can fight over the cursor.
Yeah. It was working earlier.
It's okay if we miss it. I mean, I didn't get in here to test the audio, unfortunately.
I have to do a quick stop share.
Oh, and hello to all of our visitors. Thank you all for being here on Zoom.
Red energy leaves Earth slowly because it's absorbed.
Restart. Thank you.
You may have heard of global climate change, which is often called global warming. We'll quickly summarize the mechanism of global climate change. Earth transforms sunlight's visible energy into infrared light, and infrared energy leaves Earth slowly because it's absorbed by greenhouse gases. As people produce more greenhouse gases, energy leaves Earth even more slowly, raising Earth's temperature even more than it has already gone up.
So as I said, it's not very long.
That was it.
Let's see. I don't want it to go.
You may have heard of global climate change, which is often called global
You,
warming.
yeah, just go to the next one. Thank you. So what does the future look like?
You may have heard of global climate change, which is often called global warming.
Good thing it's short. We're going to watch it.
We'll quickly summarize.
There we go.
Okay. So what does the future look like for Joshua Tree regarding climate change? Let's take a look in these next few slides at some data. And this image shows the impact of different emissions levels on future temperatures here in Joshua Tree. So greenhouse gases, or GHGs, could be high, which would be harming human health. And that's that pink color, that's that top color up there. So you can see that, or low, which would be reducing health risk. And that's that medium emissions right down below. So the direction we go regarding these emissions and the impacts to us on Earth depends on the success of both international and local efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Next, let's look at the impact of climate change, specifically in the desert. According to the California Energy Commission, daily maximum temperatures are projected to increase on average for the inland deserts region, and I'm just going to use the last number, 8 to 14 degrees Fahrenheit from 2070 to 2100. And right now, the average temperature is kind of for our area and Palm Springs. Our area is 81 degrees and Palm Springs is 88. And in the future, it's suggested that our average temperature will be 90 and theirs will be 97. So that, warming overall.
Can you say that again?
So our temperatures right now, the averages are 90 and are 81 Fahrenheit across the region as a whole and 88 degrees in Palm Springs. So the average daily highs could reach 90 degrees for the desert as a whole and 97 degrees in Palm Springs during the final decades of the century.
Okay.
So what are some of the things that will happen due to climate change? Turns out we're already seeing some of these. Extreme heat occurred very rarely 50 years ago, and now it occurs 7% of the time. This warming has also already impacted bird species locally, according to a study done by the University of California, which compared data that this guy collected in 1908 to data from now. Shrinking rainfall has led to the loss of more than 40% of bird species in the Mojave Desert. Let's think about the impact of that. I mean, ours is a habitat that relies heavily on birds for basic functions such as pollination and acting as both predator and prey. And it turns out that carnivorous birds, such as the roadrunner, are hit particularly hard. And our iconic species, the Joshua tree, will also be affected by this warming. And it's predicted that Joshua trees will likely move up in elevation to escape the hotter temperatures. So, and there's also been like a visual aerial surveys of plants, and there's already been a big impact on plants in the Mojave Desert. So what about human health in this warming? Well, worker productivity will suffer. And this could directly affect the staff at JBWD because as increases in heat and humidity, they push the limits of human tolerance, making it difficult for outdoor workers to stay cool. There are a couple of other issues Joshua Tree will be dealing with more in the future due to climate change. And one is drought. And droughts will become more severe due to rising temperatures, increasing evaporations, and decreasing soil moisture. Here is a data point to consider. From 2006 to 2016, 60% of the springs with surface water in Joshua Tree National Park went dry. And although we were fortunate to have a wet winter just recently, we cannot ignore the potential for more drought in the future. In a paper published in Nature this year, researchers reconstructed soil moisture records since AD 800 and predicted there's a 75% chance that the current mega drought will last for another 8 years. Now there will be something that's called weather whiplash. We're going to have droughtier droughts and stormier storms. So there will be increased flooding due to increased atmospheric rivers, which are impacted by climate change. And it will become a bigger problem. I learned today that today's children will likely experience as adults 5 times the amount of storms than we have today. Does anybody remember that big storm in early October 2018?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember this picture? Let's see. Oh, there.
Oh, yeah.
Can you go back? Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Yeah, so, anyway, so yeah, no one was hurt as a result of this, and this was Highway 62. And, San Bernardino County has done a vulnerability assessment, and they predict that mountains and hills within the Mojave Desert will have high landslide risks. And obviously, there would be an impact to our infrastructure with landslides. And while most of these landscape prone areas are sparsely populated, these areas may have populations with little access to emergency services or limited capacity for mobility, which could exacerbate the consequences. So what does the public in California think about all this? Well, we have some current data just released this month, and here's one finding. So an overwhelming majority say climate change has contributed to the state's recent extreme weather events. And strong majority of Californians favor the state's goal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And they favor that state law that requires 100% of the state's electricity to come from renewable resources by 2045. And anyway, so there, and another stat is 43% are willing to pay more for electricity from renewable resources. So California has led the country in taking climate action, and we've made some progress, as you can see here on this next slide. Oh, sorry, I'm gonna go back. Okay, thank you. Oh, is that me?
We're fighting. There we go.
All right, thank you, yeah. Okay, so the effect, there's some effects of current pledges and policies. It's like a little hard to see, I apologize. But our greenhouse gas emissions show promising downward trends, which have been declining since 1990. And these trends are a result of California's pioneering efforts to curb greenhouse gas emissions and are occurring despite an increase in the state's population and an increase in our economic output. Okay, so everyone, so now that we've established kind of a baseline with what's happening with climate change and some of the anticipated impacts of warming, flooding, and drought, let's quickly look at what JBWD in relation, let's look at JBWD in relation to this topic. In consideration of the dire impacts of climate change locally, JBWD must address this future risk. And what do we have so far related to climate change in our documents? Well, so in our water shortage contingency plan, there's a few mitigation solutions that are mentioned related to climate change. In our recent urban water management plan, there are some notes regarding the potential effects of climate change. And in the 2019 local hazard mitigation plan, which we're updating this year, there are reports on risk assessment and again, mitigating, so trying to lessen the impact of climate change. Interestingly, none of our documents discusses any reductions in greenhouse gases. So I believe there's a need for our district to address this problem head on in our policies and actions. Briefly, here are 3 things we can do. We can convert to renewable energy resources, such as wind and solar, to power district buildings, et cetera. That's number 1. We can use more fuel efficient electric vehicles. And number 3, we can utilize more energy efficient equipment, lighting, and HVAC systems. So energy efficiency and conservation. Energy generation is the second largest source of greenhouse gas emissions. JBWD strategies to conserve energy and use it more efficiently in agency operations can help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So the having an electrified fleet, mile for mile, electric vehicles fueled in California emit 70% fewer greenhouse gases than gasoline vehicles. That's huge, huge. And I recognize the challenges the recent fleet electrification laws are having on the district, but I want to say some positive things. Fleet electrification can make good financial sense as electric vehicles cost less to maintain and you don't have to plan for the volatility of fuel prices. There's some other benefits as well. Well, what does the public think about this? Interestingly, when asked this year about the state banning the sale of all new diesel powered heavy duty and medium duty trucks in California by 2036, 56% of adults are in favor. And then the number 3, energy efficiency. We can make upgrades to existing systems. It's one of the easiest and most cost-effective ways to combat climate change and to reduce energy costs. And it's also a vital component in achieving net zero emissions. I'm happy to report that we are doing some of this at well and reservoir sites with solar-based motion lighting. And then I have just a couple of items of interest of local companies, cities addressing climate change. First, the Coachella Valley Water District. They installed solar systems on their employee parking structures at the administrative headquarters in Palm Desert. And it's estimated that will save the district $330,000 over 20 years. Just so you know, that's actually it's a solar power purchase and site lease agreement with Novell Energy Solutions of Palm Springs, Novell. So their CBWD will be purchasing the solar energy produced by the system from Novell. So they own it, it's a lease. Okay, and then 29 Palms has some things that they're doing. Their general plan calls for the city to ensure the use of alternative and or renewable energy sources for all new city facilities. And where and when feasible and practical, they are retrofitting existing city facilities for the use of alternative or renewable energy. They received a loan from the iBank of $1.3 million for that. And as you can see right here, they have some emission reductions by sector, and they're targeting 2030 reductions of their water conveyance from where it was in 2016 at 676 tons. It's going to come down to 160 by 2030. So even small organizations, you know, can small groups can do something just like we can. Oh, what happened? Sorry, everyone, we just have to restart the presentation. I only have 40 more slides. So. I have 2. Let's get these last 2.
Yeah.
So, oh, great. So how will JBWD make progress over the long term to promote greater levels of resiliency to climate change? So not only do we need to be making an impact and contributing to reducing greenhouse gas emissions, you know, we also need to be looking at the impacts of climate change. So, for example, we're going to need to consider infrastructure protection from climate change. This can be our buildings, this can be our pipelines, et cetera. And obviously that strong commitment to the electrified fleet in keeping with state requirements. And then I think that we can also at some point consider a climate action plan, which is something I've talked to the board president and our general manager about in the past. And obviously we would solidify a commitment to these issues through improvement of select policies, programs, and permits. So we don't really have any of those in place. In closing, science tells us that the sooner we respond to climate change, the lower the risks and costs will be in the future. And JBWD can lessen the impacts of climate change by making choices that help advance solutions and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Decisions that we, all of us in this room, make can shape our world for decades to come. Not only are these actions good for the environment, but they're also good for personal and community health, quality of life, and our shared futures. Thank you. And so now I'll entertain some questions, but as I said, I'm no expert. So if anybody has any comments or questions.
Director Fick. No. Question. If some occur to you, you can speak up. I'll recognize you. Director Jarlsberg.
I have a few. It just occurred to me, I took some notes as you were speaking, so I really do appreciate what you've done and what you presented. I wondered, first of all, is that class that you took something that other people could take?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Would you send us that information or give it to general manager and then? Yeah, because that sounds really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to mention one of the first things I did when I moved here in 2017 was join the permaculture group. It was part of JT Transition, yeah. And I had been part of transition before I moved here, and so was we had a really wonderful group that dissolved, unfortunately, so literally and figuratively. So I'm hoping maybe some of your interest and some of the interest that comes up through the MBCA might resurrect that.
Maybe perhaps,
Yeah.
There's a lot of interest about permaculture. So
Yes, definitely.
more about
And
living with the land and.
Yeah, Kathleen's doing a lot on that
Yeah.
too, I think, with new people that are coming to the area.
How water moves across the landscape, all that sort of stuff.
I just wanted to mention that in informal study by me, when I lived here in 1986 to early 1990, I never experienced anything over 105. When it was 105, it was unusual, and I had a memory of seeing a bank thermometer one time in Yucca saying 105, and it was like, oh my God, and now 110, no big deal. So definitely things have changed in that period of time. I've also been involved with the bird study a couple of times, and I understand that the impact that it's had on all of the animals that live in the desert. There's a couple other things, let's see. Oh, I had a question whether JBWD is considered wind at all. I could see a windmill in our future. I've seen a number of small businesses that just have one windmill. And certainly we have enough wind here. Anyway, that was just when you were talking about solar. Obviously, we're interested in solar and whatever capacity we can use it. But
That I know of and looking at things that have been considered wind.
yeah, but I don't know. I'd like to. I had a cousin who was into that in Michigan, and a leading person actually in the movement, and he had a lot to overcome 20 years ago because wind killed birds, a lot of things that they were talking about, but yeah. But anyway, I think that that might be something we could think about in the future, obviously. I was curious that you quoted the CVWD solar project. When you stated the amount that they save over 20 years, does that include the cost of installation?
I imagine it would, but I don't know.
I often wonder how much it actually costs to install, and then how long does it take to win that, make it back, that expense? So that was just something I thought we might think about or look into. And I think that's it for now.
Thank you, Director Short.
Oh, I got no questions. Good presentation. Thank you.
Well, I think we've made a lot of progress. This is anecdotal over the decades, but we haven't kept up. And we're just gradually falling behind as the population grows. And so there you have more people that need resources. And so we stress everything. When I was a kid, it was about 1958 or so, I'd be on the playground at my elementary school, and I got to look across the playground and see the air. It was like a mist or a fog. And a lot of us, when we would come, depending on our activity level, when we came back in from recess, we were coughing from what was in the air. And 5 years ago, when I stand on that same playground, you can't see the air anymore. So things have been done. There's a lot of solar panels out there now. Catalytic converter on cars, which is not a perfect thing. I know we can get a little bit of Chrome 6 from catalytic converters, as a matter of fact. when they go down the road. And I think that, these individual efforts, you could stitch together success doing things responsibly at your own, you mentioned a couple of times at local level. But if you look again at one of those early diagrams that you put up, illustrations, I suppose you could say, that you put up, one of them was of the earth and the sun shining down on the earth and the things, the carbon or whatever coming up. Yeah, that kind of characterizes the problem. This is a worldwide problem. And we meaning industry, didn't just migrate overseas because of labor costs. It was because of some of the restrictions on manufacturing and what they could release and stuff. I can get lots of stories from my old friend that worked for oil companies for 42 years. About, that flare they used to put up where they'd burn off excess methane or some such thing. And they'd have a guy paid to just watch that flame to make sure it didn't make smoke. Those kind of things. Well, propane is a trash gas that has been converted into car fuel. I use it for my oven and my gas dryer for my clothing and stuff like that. We use a lot of that now that we didn't use before. We just burned it off. So, but it's this thing, the anecdote would be one of the more recent Olympics that was held in Beijing, I think, in China. They had to shut everything down during the athletics to clear the air for the worldwide cameras to see clean air in China. Well, typically it is not. And we know that I know that the tides come from the west to the east. We get evidence of that in earthquakes when we get debris from Japan or someplace on our coast, mostly up north, I think, because it's a little closer, I'm guessing. And so we can't fix this in Joshua Tree. Joshua Tree is one pixel in a really big picture. And so it's the Chinese, and now I'm hearing that what's happening is that because of the politics in the world and stuff, our industry is migrating from China to India and many other countries, Vietnam, I think, Indonesia and the Philippines, and I'm not sure. But David could speak to this. I might be saying something irrelevant, but we did a lot to keep more solar panels out of our region, out of Joshua Tree in particular, I would imagine, in olden times when you were here. And so anyway, I think people generally don't want large amounts of solar panels that are collected in just in central locations like we have in our dry lake over here, and then on the other side of the Copper Mountains in 29 Palms, because that is ecologically dead over there. Been out there a few times. Anybody wants to go, I'll take you. You can see for yourself. So again, this is the thing where something can be done. We can do stuff by putting, you can go to 29 Palms and they've got, I forget which Mexican restaurant, fast food type restaurant is, they got a solar panel array in their parking lot. And so you can do those kind of things. There may be some economic benefit to it. It may dent our electric bill, but we're not going to be able to generate $300,000 plus of income to compensate or break even on our electric bill, but we could do something. And so there is the being a role model type thing, if they're doing it, why can't we, that kind of thing. There's some validity to that. But this kind of a thing where it's becoming a pet peeve with me lately about how California wants to lead the nation. Well, they're doing it on the expense of the taxpayers and people with an extra cost to the state, say. They're not doing other things with that money when they're dedicating it to helping to fund electric, solar panels, that kind of thing. I have them, love them. Sometimes people ask me, well, what's your payback on that? I don't even care. You know, I got my solar panels and I like them. They're making money for me right now to help compensate for my central air system that's running. So there are things we can do, but I'm just kind of concerned that some of those, you know, we just rolled a wrinkle in our community here when we raised the rates on the water. There was some, we actually had population within this boardroom to line up and state their opinion. And so I'm cautious about doing things that's going to create an extra financial burden for people in Joshua Tree, many of whom are below the poverty level or potentially close to falling below that poverty level. And so I'm kind of concerned about what we do regarding that. And also too, when we do something, we have to integrate it into our normal business model, our strategic plan and hazard mitigation plan. The first thing would be the budget. And be reminded about Godzilla that's headed for Tokyo Bay. That actually got into the newspaper, I see. In other words, the chromium-6 mitigation, which is going to cost $18 million. We could get compensated for maybe 10, maybe from the state, which their finances go up and down. So we're looking at for that, we're looking at a bond of something in round numbers in the $400,000 yearly payment range for a bond to do Chrome-6, and roughly $750,000 a year to operate the facilities that we're going to facilities, I don't know which. So we have that. This is a wonderfully run organization, and the financing of it is responsible, circumspective, and within, just made up a word, and within limits. You know, we're doing really good with the money, but there's these other mandates that are going to be presented to us besides just the electric truck part. I don't know if we're going to try this on the tractors and stuff or not. I wouldn't be surprised. It'll especially be promoted by people that don't understand what you have to do with a tractor. They'll be big proponents of this kind of thing. Did you want to make a comment about that solar? Was that Nextera?
Yeah,
Yeah, next year between
you're right.
2015 and 2017.
Yeah, we kept them out. Where do they want to do that, by the way? I'm digressing slightly.
The airport.
Funfair.
Airport.
Funfair.
And then you had pictures of the October flood thing. Well, I came down that morning for breakfast at the Country Kitchen. And I think it was Sarah. Sarah couldn't open the place because she couldn't get across on Sunburst early enough to get in there to open the place up. So I was just standing around. So I thought, well, I'll come up here and I'll check out the office, see what's going on here. I did see the flood line. It's another story, you know, out in the parking lot here, how high the water came up. But I also looked out towards the shop from the parking lot. You can do it from the west side here. And our guys were already here. That would have been sometime around 6:30 in the morning. The guys were already here. I could see them when they're in their lime shirts scrambling around out there. And then before I knew it, there's a heavy equipment going south, headed up Park, because the flooding. This gets into your thing about mitigation stuff. The flooding had washed away supporting sand and dirt, where a pipe crossed a wash that then washed out, and it broke the pipe. And so here they are on Saturday morning, and they're going up there like that. I was very proud of our people that day, that they were already on the job there. And one of your pictures of that flood, you showed a tractor, the submerged car in the picture. There was a tractor in the background. I don't know whose it was, but Caltrans or somebody was out there.
Yeah.
too. And there's some of this stuff, about light bulbs and things collectively, when we do some of these lesser things collectively, we can do a lot, and we indeed are. It isn't just Joshua Tree that is going to buy LED light bulbs at Home Depot and put them, in our oven hood, that kind of thing. Everybody does that kind of stuff now. So what I'm kind of looking for, and I really hate to say this, but some leadership from Sacramento about so that everybody is doing something that will help slow down, further mitigate, as you said. I looked that word up this morning, just to make sure. Mitigate this stuff, because many hands make for a light load. And so if everybody could do something, but again, I temper that with saying, what can our rate payers tolerate here? And that's always with everybody here, indeed, in the forefront. That's all I have. Do you have any response?
Follow up, and that was, I took it out of the presentation, but it was just a comment that one of the things I learned in this class was that in the past, a lot of burden for climate change actions were put on the individual. And they were like, this is what individuals can do. And there was less put on organizations or communities. And so a lot of what we have to do needs to also occur at the community level, which, JBWD would be that.
Mhm.
That's all I had to say.
The other board member have a additional?
Any of the public?
Always prompting me, which I encourage being prompted. I truly do. Yes, do we have any public comments from anybody in TV land? I guess your report was too good.
All right, so I'll leave the mouse up here for Kathleen. Oh, you want it? Okay.
I just wanted to say one quick thing about solar panels. I agree that we don't need the arrays. I think every roof and every parking lot should have solar above it. And I think that's actually part of what's happening is that people are encouraging that kind of solar installation as opposed to this clearing land. So, yeah.
Anything from staff? Yeah.
No.
Item 8B. I don't know if I said that.
Thank you.
Particular. Kathleen Radnich, Public Outreach Consultant.
Thank you for a cold. I have swamp cooler. And I'm very happy to see President Sloan sitting healthy and happy after last Saturday.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
willing
yeah.
Saturday. Thank you.
I still say it was 115.
I don't know. I think 111, my friend. 111.
Yeah.
On your $3 thermometer. That was broken, I think.
Okay, well, I'm happy to share with you some updates and bring up to speed with everything that's going on, gone on, and planned to happen. Many of the following activities and announcements will be posted in the August or the September newsletter or both. First of all, the docent meeting that is being planned is about quarterly. It's for Friday, September 22nd from 5 to 6 p.m. here at the district office. And we'll be covering the fall classes, which I'm not yet ready to announce. Creating a water-wise lavender garden with full varieties and the historic and current uses of lavender. And pest fighting plants for water-wise gardens and edible gardens that work well in the desert environment. So that's what we'll be covering. It's just 1 hour. It's update. Again, we get together and I always have new people starting fresh. Next up is the El Nino and Sandbag event. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration last week, an El Nino weather pattern is coming in earlier than usual. And with forecasters noting the pattern almost always reaches peak strength between November and January, and they think it may be for longer this year. And of course, last year was supposed to be a La Nina, and look at how much moisture we got, so. Anyway, and last Thursday, they said there was an 81% chance the El Nino would reach moderate to strong intensity during that time frame. This building weather pattern can increase thunderstorm activity in the monsoonal season of the coming weeks ahead. And that is why the August teardrop newsletter will stress fire safety measures for property concerns as lightning strike fires are a reality out here. It will also address how water plays a vital role in firefighting and the costs that come with it to all of us. Many don't realize we all pay for that water. Additionally, an El Nino weather pattern that is known to increase rainfall in our desert brings with it another problem, and that's flooding. And thank you for bringing that good photo and remind us. For those of us who have been here a while, we know what moving stormwater can do to erosion of earth, undermining foundations, or burying drip irrigation systems. Even our water pipelines can be exposed and damaged. Again, that was perfect. Thank you. With this in mind, our district and San Bernardino County Fire will be teaming up for a brief one-time opportunity to obtain free unfilled sandbags along with a short demonstration on how to quickly and effectively fill and build erosion protection with sandbags. Now, I know everyone in this room is thinking, duh, really? How hard is it? As a trained emergency manager, I actually had to take a 4-hour flight
Oh.
from the Office of Emergency Services, State of California, to get certified. And I'm not available if you guys need me.
Does that mean you're a sandbagger? No.
Anyway, but it was how to safely fill and quickly build with sandbags versus just how to fill them for the future use in a base. And there really is a huge difference. I also learned and had to demonstrate how to build a levee wall
Ooh.
while a stopwatch was going. And I kid you not, all with a pile of sand, a shovel, and empty sandbags. They hand you a shovel and they say, do it. Now, thankfully, that is about 3.75 hours of sandbagging education overkill that will not be shown to our public. Spoiler alert, though, if you don't do it right, the force of the water will undo all your hard work. There is a proper technique. So this Morongo Basin Community Opportunity, while open to all, will be held here at the Joshua Basin Water District Office parking lot on Saturday, September 30th from 3 to 4 p.m. in partnership with the Fire Services of San Bernardino County. They're very excited to come out and do this because they too are anticipating potential movement of earth and water in the El Nino episode. So moving on to the farmers market booth themes. This month, we have focused on our outreach at market on the aquifers recharge and maintenance efforts. And we have pictures, which you guys don't know about, all the stuff you do out there, you know, scarifying the ground of them and explaining what goes into it. We're also promoting the new consumer confidence report that just published. In our August booth, we'll be highlighting rain harvesting to save water on outdoor landscaping. So those are back to back in anticipation right now of possibly wet weather. And then the good news, our strategic partner grant award for conservation messaging. Last February, if you recall, I spoke to it that we had Joshua Basin Water District submitted a grant on behalf of the High Desert Water District, ourselves, and Bighorn Desert Few Water Agency in a partnership. And we are the lead applicant. Our district submitted a grant request, MWA. for 18,500. And last year, they gave us 15,000, which we worked with. And 29 Palms Water District wanted to join in, but they're not a part of Mojave. So they had to kind of pay in, but they gladly made up the difference. So everything that was proposed was able to be covered. We didn't have to cut back. And like last year, we got the same amount award for 15,000. And like last year, 29 Palms also wants to participate again. So we have a unified front of messaging to the Morongo Basin on behalf of all of water, and everyone's really happy about it. This program will begin shortly, so I invite General Manager Johnson and Director Doolittle to forward any effective social media marketing strategies and their costs to me for consideration. I have some wiggle room. I'll see how we can work it in. And because at the time that was not proposed, it was all written up in January, submitted by the February deadline. And then I also had reported, I believe at that same meeting, about the community garden project at Josh Tree Community Center. I was working with them and trying to help them also apply for a grant with Mojave Water Agency and for their proposed community garden. And they did receive from Mojave Water Agency. They're under our jurisdiction area, so they could put in for a need for money. And every water district's allowed a threshold amount. And since they put in, that counts towards us. So in essence, we got the one that we applied for messaging, and then they also got theirs for $4,000, which is going to be used for a new drip irrigation system for soil and mulch and a small shed.
Ooh.
And they haven't worked through a lot of things. We have a lot of things on paper. But they weren't going to do anything more until they found out if they got any funding. So now they're kind of really stoked and excited, and they're trying to ramp up. All right, then we had the free tree seedling giveaway just recently in June. And what began as an opportunity to extend some remnant grant funds for distribution of 50 water-wise seedling trees. In the end, it resulted in 90 trees being given away to our local community.
Oh,
Now, the neat thing about that was the demand was so huge in just 2 days. They didn't have the money. And they didn't want to cut people off after 2 days. So apparently, the director of this program went to someone above her at UCR and begged to find some more funding. And they did, to buy those additional 40 trees. And 90 trees were given out. And they were mesquite and they were Palo Verdes, which were well
Wonderful.
received out here.
Wonderful.
Everyone was happy. So we had 3 bonus takeaways from this project, aside from everyone being happy, and we gave away these great trees that will be water wise. First, the local master gardeners wanting to become involved with our docent program. They didn't even know about it. Secondly, UCR was so pleased with our community's response that they promised they're going to see if they can do this again. They're going to try and get another grant for this area. And the third thing was the master gardeners had so much fun. It was a short thing, but they had a lot of fun. They kind of ran it that their director and the master gardeners were talking about the possibility of them putting on classes on mulching and composting and on permaculture on before the Morongo Basin to work with us. So it was a very positive for everyone involved. Now, moving on to the constant contact stats, I think we have a lot of people on vacation. Our hadn't dropped below 50% for months. Our opening rate dropped to 47%. I hope you're all having a wonderful vacation. I expect to see it go back up in September. The Citizens Advisory Council, our membership is dropping off for various reasons outside of our control. And I'm urging this board to consider your divisions and people in them who might be great candidates to come and participate. We are, if you don't want to contact them, let me contact them and I will start the dialogue and hopefully encourage them or send them to the market. And Tom and I will cool them off under our bucket mister and we will sing the praises of what the CAC can do for this water district. The CAC's newly elected leader, Glenn Harris, resigned due to increased work obligations. At this time, the CAC is reevaluating their protocols and procedures, making this a very good time for new people to join. An excellent time, their voice to be heard and to get involved, correct? Okay. So as you saw in the last newsletter, there is a Water in the Desert art show, and the purpose of that, the goal, especially with a wet winter spring season behind us and an El Nino ahead of us, but severe weather or water cutback mandates facing us, this event is intended to help keep water conservation kind of in the top of the mind awareness status. And it's kind of exciting. I've already been privy to some of the entries. It's going to be a great show and it's free. So we welcome. Mohammed's really excited about it. All right, the Water Education Festival, I would refer to you to click that mouse and make it happen. Here's a little video of what we went through last night.
Welcome to the 5th Annual Water Education Festival. We're here at La Contenta Middle School in Yucca Valley. This event is hosted by the High Desert Water District, Joshua Basin Water District, Mojave Water Agency, and Bighorn Desert View Water Agency. Today we have about 300 middle school students. They're here to participate in hands-on activities and learn about the various aspects of water, how it's pumped from the ground, how to fix a water leak, where the water comes from, how to protect our sewer lines, why it's important to conserve it, and the various aspects of the water cycle.
So what we're gonna do in this booth this morning is we're gonna talk about where we get our water from.
The aquifer is like the layer of earth where all of our water in our service area comes from, yes.
But a desert tortoise has claws that we cannot flush right, even if they say flushable.
How can you save money for your mom and dad? Kid in the blue, yes sir.
Most directly, we get our water from groundwater. We come out, we drill down.
Desalination. Good for you. Okay.
But it's up to you, right?
Nice video. So just to clarify, it was about 350 eighth graders. There were 10 rounds. It was all day. It was brutal. I want to thank our own Autumn Rich for her help. This is not a one-person endeavor, and to her supervisors for letting her go. And next year, she's going to beg you not to let her go. She's a couple years to just chill through that one. But in closing, I personally want to offer my heartfelt sympathy for our loss with the passing of Steve Portman, to our staff and his immediate family and friends. I have seen firsthand where every employee here is an integral part of a successful team, pushing out more than 100% effort on a daily basis. And yet when a team player falls, they all rally around the void to pick up the difference, requiring them all to go way beyond the 100%. And at that, while trying to process grief from the loss of an associate and oftentimes as a friend. I am privileged to be working with such genuinely giving and professional individuals. Godspeed, Steve Corbin, will be missed. I'm fortunate to have been able to have shared a corner of your world. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Kathleen. Item 9, informational items and reports. For informational purposes only on subjects not covered by the agenda, no action will be taken. The board may provide staff with requests for future agenda items. We start with the general manager's report. General Manager Sarah Johnson.
Well, thank you to Stacy and Kathleen tonight. I think all the staff here understands how challenging it is to put together those presentations, and putting all of that together was very well done by both of you. So thank you. As Kathleen reported, our CAC chair, Glenn Harris, has stepped down due to competing priorities. We hope that one day he'll be back. In the meantime, we are looking for new CAC members, and I'm working on a set of bylaws. I realize the CAC does not have bylaws, so our next meeting, we're going to bring bylaws for their review, and then we'll bring them to the board, because ultimately the board will have to adopt those or make suggestions for edits, along with a new application that has to be updated as well. If you've noticed, we've made some updates in the boardroom. Hopefully you can hear me a little bit better. Yes. We put in a larger screen television, about 10 more inches. That was budget friendly. We tried to be careful, with the budget. We did get some quotes for additional cameras and different speakers, and we were quoted about $24,000, and we decided that was not worth it. So we used the equipment that we already had and invested it, a little bit more in the TV and in these microphones. So hopefully that will make a difference that everybody was looking for. So thank you to David Shook for getting all of that done. I asked him to get it done before the board meeting, and he succeeded. Thank you. We finished the paving of the parking lot over at the shop. That project has come to need to be done for a long time. The parking lot over there was a slip, trip, and fall hazard amongst many other things. So now it's looking good. We have secured all of the Toyotas from the recent budget approval, and one was delivered this week. We're really excited about that, because last year it took months and months and months. So we anticipate getting the rest of them by sometime late August. The new vacuum was also delivered this week, so we're excited about that. I got to stand out there and see the whole tutorial of how that works, so that was nice. The D11 booster pump skid was also received. The install will be scheduled when the building is received, so that's still TBD. We'll have a report at the next WRO meeting that will include an update on that booster station. LEWAP day is tomorrow, and we had a really successful day last time. We're hoping for the same success tomorrow, and we'll bring a full report to the board after both of those have concluded. And then last, this is getting all too familiar and really challenging, but in 16 months, we've lost 4 members of our staff, 1 board member and 3 staff members, and it's been challenging. Steve Corbin was almost 16-year veteran of this district, integral in this district, and he's really going to be missed. We lost him on Sunday. Don't know all the details yet, but he was on a motorcycle, and what we understand is he had a medical emergency while riding, and unfortunately did not make it through that accident. All of us are having a really tough time with this, and we certainly don't want to do it ever again, because it's been too much. And we're small here. Everyone works very closely, and we get to know each other and each other's families, and stories about our lives. And Steve was looking toward retirement next year and sharing stories with all of us about his plans, and we're devastated by this loss. And so if we could take a moment of silence for Steve and for Barbara Delph, for Jim Corbin, and for Kelly Stewart, because we're still feeling all those losses very much. Thank you. That is the end of my report.
Thank you very much. Directors' reports and comments. Vice President DeVille.
So I attended the MWA board meeting on July 13th, and just briefly, they discussed the need and elements of an imported water management policy. And then the only other thing that I thought was interesting is they're going to be doing stream gauge data at Pioneer Town in the future.
What is that?
Stream gauge data. So they were just talking about different gauges, new gauges where they're monitoring water flow. And they're thinking about where they can access future water supplies. And so this was one of the places that they said that they were going to monitor.
This meeting, Joshua Basin.
Pioneer Town.
Oh.
No, MWA is gonna be putting a stream gauge flow.
Okay.
Stream gauge data point at Pioneer Town in the future.
Yeah, I misheard you. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm gonna work on that, by the way. Director Fick.
Well, other than going to how's it going? ASBCSD.
Oh, you went to that. Okay.
Yeah, me and Stacy. Met a lot of people, some I knew, some I didn't, and there's as much going with Stacy to and from as I did there. We have a lot to do. So.
Thank you very much. Director Jarlsberg.
Well, I just want to mention that I did attend the WRO committee meeting, which actually, General Manager Johnson's report covered some of what came up on that at that meeting. I thought it was very productive and informative. And I look forward to, some future things they're talking about. Regarding the CAC, I wondered if anyone has thought of going back to Mark Lundquist when he applied to be on the board. During the interview, I asked him if he'd be interested in being on the CAC if he didn't make it. And so anyway, that was one idea. And I also have somebody in my neighborhood that I'm going to be talking to, but maybe I'll take you up on your idea. I'm missing Steve also. It's weird. I didn't really know him that well, but I've been well aware of his importance at this facility for a long time. He was one of the first people when I went on one of the tours years ago that really explained what was going on in a very clear way that made it, way more interesting and informative. And his little invention, I had talked to him in the past about possibly get some kind of award there. I think it's ACWA has an award system where innovation is recognized. And I really thought that his I forget what you call it, a skimmer, or I'm not sure what the technical name was, but I thought that was very innovative and should get some higher recognition for what it's done, and maybe encourage other districts to look into the same kind of thing. And so I was going to suggest that maybe we look into some kind of award in his memory that could be sent out to some of our member organizations. And I think that's it.
Director Short.
I didn't attend any additional meetings, but I also want to send my condolences to Steve and his friends and family as well.
Yeah, Steve was one of those guys that just has a tremendous amount of institutional knowledge.
Yeah.
And he delivers it in a very personable, non-arrogant way. He's just helpful guy. Also, a clearly an understandable person too. He didn't boggle me with, because he knew the technical stuff,
right?
And he didn't boggle me with any of that. He just he understood who he was talking to. Let's put it that way. Yeah, he will be missed. So the challenge is that who else now is going to step up and help lead. I did have one meeting, an odd one. It was with some of the field staff on the road just over my east fence. My service line was leaking for the second time. And they sort of draw, there's judgments made on that, but they draw the line at how many times they will clamp a patch on those service lines. Apparently there's a little bit of problem with that black poly, that's called, fellas, plastic piper. There's a seam in there that can be vulnerable over decades to leaking. And so anyway, they came back out with copper pipe to replace that about a week after they put the patch on the plastic pipe. And it just, it's always interesting to me to watch what these field guys do. A lot of the internal people can be interesting too.
We love our administrative.
But anyway, they came out with the vacuum and all that, and which they did not use, because when you replaced the whole line, which was something less than 20 feet, probably not cheap for copper, 1-inch copper, but they had to bring out the backhoe and dig a trench that was something like four feet deep to get the old line out and put the new one in. But it was just impressive to see how well they work even in the heat. So what has to happen too is, I think Jake did it. He was recording. He was also the tractor guy, and he was when the job was done, he was recording on his. It looked like a phone. Well, it probably was. It was on a phone. The GPS. Because they track, we track all that kind of stuff. With satellites and all this other sorts of stuff, exactly where they do what they do. So that, and also a description of what kind of a leak it was, how long it leaked, the size of the leak, and this information contributes to the water loss report that we're required to submit to the state Water Resources Control Board or somebody, which ends up yearly being a lot of water that we lose through leaks. And then also too, that data is then used to prioritize where people will work next on the pipe system too, depending on what kind of pipe it is. Because that's how we decide where we're going to replace pipe, is we do it by where the leaks are. The most leaks are. That's why we started at Saddleback and then went up to Guilford, which we divided into. It was such a large project, we divided it in two for accounting purposes. A little bit more trivia there. But it was, and then you watch the adaptability of them too. So when Jake has to enter this stuff, there was a creosote bush right within a few feet of where this project was. And even to do something like this with his finger on a phone, he sits down on the berm of the road underneath this 4.5 foot creosote bush to get out of the sun. Just for that, just because at the end of the day, if you can accumulate experiences with shade over the day, towards the end of the day, you feel a little bit better. You go home a little bit happier, not having to stand in the sun all day long. So anyway, it was interesting to just watch him work. And again, I'm always impressed with those guys out there and what they do and why they do it. Because I'll explain to you why they do stuff. Why did you replace that line? And for Kathleen, I keep forgetting to tell you this. I said, do you reuse those clamps? Because the clamps are like 4.5 inches or something like that. Why did they put on the pipe? And so he said, no, we don't. And so I captured that. And so I got to get advice from you on what length to cut it into for illustrating. Because there's 2 clamps, we could potentially have different displays for different venues or something like that too. And then Jake said, oh yeah, kind of a thing. So he goes back to the truck and he pulls out something like a 9-foot piece of that black poly plastic pipe. And it's got probably 15 clamps, one after another in that pipe. It's actually heavy to lift because there's so many clamps in it. And I said, and he says, well, there's certain places where it's really, really hard to replace that line. And so they put it off as long as possible by just simply reclamping all the time. It's a practical strategy for dealing with the leak. Some of the clamps, by the way, were like this. And so I don't know if it's so big and heavy. I don't know. I might have to cut it up. That I'm rambling a little bit, so I'm pretty enough said. So that's anybody, anyone has anything further, I will welcome a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I move for adjournment.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. This motion, this meeting is adjourned at 6:45. Thank you very much.
I got checks.